Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Don't Praise the Machine for a brand new year, 2025. John Maloney, how you doing, my co-host?
Great, thank you, Alexander Holland.
And for 2025, Santa came down and brought us a Christmas miracle. And It is old friend of the show, Hilaria Baldwin. She's back forgetting English words again. Throw to the clip.
I learned this from when I was a kid, but I can tell you that my tortilla
So rude.
is potatoes. You have to not cut them too tiny. And then my husband hates cebolla.
Onions.
I forgot it. Okay.
Cebolla.
Cebolla. So he hates cebolla, and so I grind cebolla and ajo together, and we put like a little bit of olive oil in it.
Hilaria Baldwin from Boston. We have not spoken about her on the show for probably over a year. Although, John, I did realize when I was looking this little moment up again that she appears in the description of our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts.
Yeah.
We have written in the bio, what's it like to have a virtual companion? Did Hilaria Baldwin really pretend to be Spanish? So she's such an integral part of the show that she occupies some of the characters that we use in the bio of the show for
to
SEO.
define the very spirit of the show.
Yes,
true.
exactly. Now, what's happened, John? Maybe you just want to give everybody a real quick background as to who she is. My parents are like, who's Hilaria Baldwin again?
Yeah, and now very much like onion or cebolla, there are many layers to this story. And those of you who have been watching and listening to us for some time will know that the first time we talked about Hilaria Baldwin is episode 32, if my records are correct.
Okay.
And then again in episode 94, we probably made at least passing reference to her and Alec a couple of times in the interim because of his troubles on the set of Rust.
Yes.
But long before those troubles began, of course, she was outed for this apparently very persistent habit that she has of using a Spanish accent, and kind of more than that, using a sort of Spanish alter ego or persona that she just can't seem to leave behind. So quick recap. Basically, you had this, and those of you who are interested can go back to episode 32 and listen to us unpack all of this for the first time. She had this kind of long-running persona, as I say, of somebody who was quote unquote from Spain. If Alec's words were to be taken at first value,
on David Letterman, it's there. He says it.
Yeah,
My wife is from Spain on a David Letterman episode.
My wife is from Spain. She's on a cooking show talking about how she came to America from after college and never went back. She talks about how she's forgotten the English word for cucumber, I think it is.
And then there's that. Sorry, there's the bit. Maybe you're going to say as well. There's the bit where the two interviewees are kind of confused when she's talking about college, and they say something to her. I can't remember what the direct question is, John, but her response is, "My parents live in Spain."
Yeah, that's right. My parents live in Spain. So she's got this kind of she's got this sort of masterful patter down of, not exactly saying I'm Spanish and I'm from Spain, but really walking up to the line. I think probably overstepping plausible deniability, but saying, basically, oh yeah, my parents live in Spain. I've gone home to see my family for Christmas, things like that. So she talks about how there's actually an article on goodoldnews.com.au, which is the kind of Australian Daily Mail that I looked up, which for this little bit, and she it's quite sort of biting. Just says, she says that her parents now live there and she grew up between two cultures. There's no timeline, no details, just vagaries, masquerading as an explanation for her bizarre accent that fluctuates between bog standard American and some stilted stab at Penelope Cruz's sultry English. And she, even now, I think, even after this kind of came out about her sort of, purporting to be Spanish, she sort of didn't really, she denied that she'd done anything wrong or that she'd kind of deliberately misled people, but she also didn't really go into much detail about the extent to which she wasn't from Spain. So she says, I started going there as a kid, and my parents really liked it. And I think one of her parents might have been like a professor of Spanish studies or something like that. And they obviously just kind of adopted it as a place they were interested in and wanted to be associated with.
Why wouldn't she just say, oh no, I'm from Boston. I grew up in Boston, but I've spent quite a lot of first of all, you shouldn't pretend to be Spanish or have a Spanish accent, right? But a normal person would just consistently, when people say, "Oh, you seem to have a real interest in the Spanish culture," or for some reason, "You're so great at Spanish. You're not from Spain, are you?" And to which you would reply, "Oh no, of course not. I wouldn't want anybody to get that impression. I'm from Boston. Like, I'm from Boston. I just love Spain. I've been there a lot. I speak it well, and I love the culture. But no, I'm as Boston as they come."
Yeah, exactly. Which she later said, "Look, I was born in Boston. This is the first thing that I told my husband, Alec." And obviously when he said my wife is from Spain, he was just having a joke about it for no reason. And, she talks, she even, she talked about when she met him. This is probably one of my favorite episodes because it's pretty damning. She talks about how when she told her family that she was marrying Alec Baldwin, they had trouble pronouncing his name, and she's saying to them, no, it's Baldwin. And it's like, well, but your parents were Bostonian, so why would they, like, Baldwin is not there's probably 10,000 Baldwins living in Massachusetts. But anyway, so this kind of stretches back to about 2015, and then, a few years ago it all came unstuck, and she was forced to issue this apology. But it's remarkable that in spite of all of that, and in spite of that doing massive damage to her public profile, she hasn't stopped kind of using this persona as demonstrated in this clip.
And using it on camera, apparently.
Yeah. And in the clip, the weird thing is that she's kind of not just using certain words, but sort of speaking in this voice that is very much, you might think different from the voice that she usually uses, for example, in apology videos when she's explaining that she's from Boston. She's talking about making a famous Spanish tortilla, and she's saying that her husband doesn't like cebolla, which is in Spain is an onion. And she's forgotten a word for that, of course, because she's Spanish again. And it's so on the nose. And we might get to another example of this either this week or in a forthcoming episode. But it's one of those things which makes me think this is almost deliberately provocative. And are you playing some kind of viral marketing 4D chess, or what's going on here that this clip has suddenly surfaced? Because one of the things we talked about, I think maybe as far back as episode 94, was the fact that she has subsequently tried to kind of relaunch her career on a number of occasions, and it's always kind of come unstuck, either because she's being accused of pretending to be Spanish or because of Alec's problems not securing firearms on sets. And so she's tried, 4 or 5 times to launch these different podcasts, and they haven't really worked, and they've been savagely mocked. Now, the next thing that she's trying with Alec is happening this year, which is a TLC reality TV show called The Baldwins. And I remember last year briefly making reference to that as a kind of thing that would be on our radar coming into the new year on DPTM. And here we are. It's 2025. TLC's presumably either started filming or must be, they may even be finished filming, or they may be about to start filming at the very latest. This reality TV show, which apparently captures the, thrills and spills and the wild and crazy lives of Alec and Hilaria and their 7 children. And so I kind of thought, is this some kind of cynical ploy that TLC, the channel that's putting it out, or maybe Hilaria's people are using to get her name back in the headlines because they know that, just as everyone likes the Island Boys doing cameos, even though they think they're idiots. Just as everyone kind of, some people don't have a real appetite for Hayley Welch, but they it doesn't stop them putting their eyeballs on it. And as long as they're doing that, then TLC are going to be happy. So they're just as happy with you hate watching a show as they are with you admiring somebody that you're watching on a show, really.
Yeah.
So I kind of do think, is that what's happening here? Are they sort of seeding people to, are they riling people up so that they'll watch the TLC reality show? Or is that too paranoid? I don't know.
I was trying to find the origin of the clip because it didn't make sense. The first thing I thought was she wouldn't allow that video to go. She'd even be, I would think, cautious about even being filmed by friends for social media or something like that. I would have, if she really wanted to control her image. So it looks like that video, the recent one where she pretends or potentially really, you're the lawyer here, John, allegedly forgot the English word for onions. It looks, my first thought was, well, when I saw it, my first thought was, did she post this? And it doesn't look like, no, she didn't. It just says, I think its virality came from a post by, I think it's an account called Pop something, but they say they got the clip from the Daily Mail, and it says, then I went to the Daily Mail article and it said, obtained exclusively by the Daily Mail, tabloid claims that in the video Baldwin is cooking for her holiday guests, which implies this happened recently. No further information was provided, but the video on the Daily Mail website does contain an Instagram handle for a private account. So there's a couple of... So it's very possible, but the whole thing is orchestrated. In fact, I would say almost likely, the more that I learn each year about the way that the world and entertainment works. Yeah. But it's also possible that she had these guests over who were filming an Instagram story of her for clout, basically, like people tend to. Because you can see, it looks like on the original video, it looks like she's tagged, and it very much looks like the format of an Instagram story post. Yeah. So, she's with these two, I think, actual Spanish-speaking men, it looks like, in the kitchen. Looks like. One's behind the camera and one's with her. Hilariously, one of these, I'm assuming he's a native Spanish speaker. He's the one that reminds her the word for onion, which is just great. That the woman from Boston can't remember onion, but the native Spanish speaker just goes, I forget the word cebollas, and he just goes, onion. And so it's possible. It's possible that what happened was that somebody took a little cheeky Instagram story video of her so they'd get a bit of clout from their friends. Like, look at us, we with Hilaria Baldwin, and it just happens that she's forgotten another word. But even that seems so unlikely that it seems so unlikely.
Daily Mail journalist was like, fuck yeah, Merry Christmas, everybody.
Well, I presume that what happens in these cases is that, like, let's assume for a second that it isn't orchestrated, and then in what case probably what happened, and I'm sure this happens a lot, that somebody who is in the presence of a celebrity films them, adds it as their own Instagram story or something. That obviously is not getting posted. That's not Hilaria in control of the video. Like, it's just some friend of hers, might be like somebody from the neighborhood. They post the video. It goes to all of their followers. They might have even if, let's say, a private account, they might still have like 5,000 friends on their private Instagram account. And of course, one of them's just going to go, she's forgotten she's forgotten an English word again. And I'm going to I'll download the video quickly and potentially sell it or just give it to the Daily Mail. And that's how it happens. It's also like the way this works. I wouldn't be at all surprised if they just, like, if Hilaria's team just handed the video to the Daily Mail and said, here you go, here's me pretending that I forgot to talk about Spanish, I forgot to speak how to speak English again. Please remind everybody in the article that you're going to write that I have a TV series which is meant to be coming out on TLC this year called The Baldwins. It's also possible
Yeah.
that it's that it's a bit more 4D chess where Hilaria says to these guys, like, can you post a video of me pretending to forget the word for onions? And I bet somebody in your friends takes it and I bet somebody leaks it to a newspaper. But then, of course, the question becomes, for somebody like Hilaria, can you sustain a career just based on hate? It works for a very specific type of person in a very specific type of industry. So the best example I can think of is Jake Paul. And the reason it works for Jake Paul is because Jake Paul puts himself into these like fake boxing matches, allegedly fake boxing matches, where everybody watches because they want to see him get knocked out. So he has this kind of vehicle that he can go, oh, it's fine for me to be hated because I can monetize that hate this way with these boxing matches. Well, I just don't know. And I guess this also leads on a little bit to the Meghan Markle Netflix show. Can you just be Hilaria Baldwin and can you deliberately have a career where you make people think that you are this person that pretends to be Spanish? And can you just do that how long does that go for before people go? Yeah. Obviously, you also have to convince people that you're not doing this deliberately. You have to convince people that you genuinely are this like fake person. That's like a person who's pretending to be Spanish.
Yeah, I think if it's 4D chess, it's 4D chess being played by her marketing people or TLC's marketing people, because it's hard for me to believe that she would be someone, partly because it's so kind of off-brand for the image that she's obviously tried very hard through her various podcasts to create of this, and through books. I mean, famously, Tom, my brother and friend of the podcast, gave me a copy for my birthday, I think, of the Living Clearly method, where she's just posing in various kind of uncomfortable, strange yoga poses and cooking bone broth and God knows what. And so she's got this kind of, clean living, sort of slightly sophisticated, but also very kind of earthy and in touch with herself person. So for her to go, I mean, if that's to be taken as some demonstration of how seriously she takes herself, then for her to say, okay, I'm just going to lean into the kind of goofball who keeps forgetting that I'm not Spanish. Like that's hard to believe that she would do that. Whereas I don't know so maybe what's happening is her PR team is just like, oh yeah, sorry, someone's leaked this video, and they're just in the background going, yeah, great, like it's a brand's a brand, and it gets people watching her show, and that's how I get paid. So I could care less if she gets chewed up and spat out through this process. But I mean, I don't know enough about how those relationships work to know whether that's a plausible explanation, but it certainly would in the short term remind people that she's got this show coming out and motivate. I mean, it'll probably motivate me to put on that show because I can't wait to see.
Surely you'd watch one episode, and maybe that's all they. Maybe that's all they need. Maybe maybe the way that this works is they just need you to watch one episode, and if they get enough people to watch one episode, then they make their money back. But the other thing is that article came out about her forgetting the word for onion, and then part of the article is, oh, by the way, she's got this TV series called The Baldwins coming out on TLC this year. And so I thought, oh, let me have a look. Maybe it would be such a coincidence, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, if that show's coming out like this week or something like that. Yeah. But I can't find a release date for the TLC series. And not only can I not find a release date, it was 7 months ago that show was announced. So what I was also thinking about once I saw this Hilaria forgetting the onion video was, is it possible that the show has been shelved and they've said to Hilaria, I know that we shot all that show and that, there's like 7 episodes in the can ready to go, but your kind of star's fallen and the whole thing with Alec is just not really great and we're not going to really do anything with it for a while. And then she's gone. Well, hang on a second. Maybe if I can get my name back in the headlines, maybe TLC will then relaunch the show.
Yeah.
Maybe even Hilaria reaches out to the tabloids and says, hey, reaches out to the Daily Mail and says, hey, I'll give you a video of me pretending to forget the word for onion, so long as you mention in the article that I have a TV series with TLC.
Yeah, and then the execs at TLC say, oh, actually, there is a bit of good word of mouth going here.
Yeah.
And so let's bring this forward. Let's bring that into the spring calendar for TLC. I mean, maybe, yeah, that would be a clever move by her marketing people. And you can see how she might be somewhat desperate to do that because, so on episode 94, I talked about this, but she has had, so many attempts. She's had, What's One More, which was a podcast that she did with Alec. She's had Mom Brain. She's had Witches Anonymous, etc. All these podcasts that have come out where she's gone, all right, now this is it. Now this is my vehicle, and none of them have worked. So, and you could sort of tell. I mean, there was. I might be unduly sympathetic to Alec Baldwin here. He might be just as willing a participant as she is, but there was a bit of a kind of hostage vibe to him being, because he's famously hates paparazzi, hates people in his face. Suddenly he's like, yeah, everyone bring your cameras into my house. And film me going about my day. I mean, it just sounds like his nightmare. And I thought at the time, is he doing this because they're in, they owe shitloads of legal fees and they're kind of, he's worried about what's going to happen if he, gets in trouble. Now, as it happened, the indictment went away. I think the trial started and then fell over because the prosecutors in the Rust proceeding basically tried to introduce evidence that they should have provided to the defense much earlier, and the judge said this is prejudicial and kicked out the whole case. And so as far as I know, he's in the clear now. So maybe that's also led to him saying to Hilaria, look, I'm not going to need, appeal fees for my lawyers. I'm not going to need to fight a prison sentence, etc. So I'm not as desperate for cash as I was. So maybe let's not have cameras in addition to our 7 children and 8 dogs in the apartment.
I've just looked up. He does have on IMDb, he's got 7 productions coming up. So he should be doing okay. Kent State, Untitled Alec Baldwin, Kelsey Grammer Project, John. There's one for you. The Untitled Alec Baldwin, Kelsey Grammer Project. 1 episode is apparently, it says here, completed. It's part of a TV
Maybe he's
series.
on the Frasier reboot. I watched that episode.
But then he's got, there's something called, oh my God, these look great. There's something called Kid Santa, False Awakening, Hollywood Heist, Fighting Destiny, and Blue Before Blood is another one.
Blood. Yeah, okay, great. What's he, because he was in, what's he most recently been in? I mean, obviously it's gone pretty quiet since Rust. But I've been watching him recently, over Christmas actually, belly full of Christmas pud. I've been putting on a few episodes of him as Jack Donaghy in 30 Rock. Now, I'm sure he would love to reprise that role because he was so likable and funny back then.
I think it's also possible that Hilaria is now aware, as you say, as evidenced by her string of failed podcasts, that she can't, that image that she'd built up of being the Spanish wellness mom, that's all in ashes now. That's that's a smoldering pile of failure. And so
It's like a tortilla that's been
It's
left
like
in the oven for too long.
It's like a tortilla that's just been left in the pan for too long. And so she's aware, and perhaps her marketing team have just said, look, that's finished. Look, it's not working anymore. We've tried. So here's your angle. You need to be a laughing stock that continues to think, like, we make the public think that you are continuing pretending to be Spanish, and we'll see how many pesos we can get out of this. What was the Spanish? Pesos is Mexican, isn't it? What was the Spanish currency before the euro?
Yeah, good question.
What was the Spanish currency before the euro?
Peseta.
They had the peseta? Is that right? The
peseta.
Peseta. That's right.
I've never even. It doesn't really ring a bell, but there you go.
Yeah,
she's making those pesetas. she's looking through a glass cebollo. It's cebollo because it's the th of the Spanish pronunciation. I wonder if it's cebollo in Mexican. Somebody can let us know.
Why hasn't Alec? I can't. This is why I think, this is another reason of why Hollywood is going to collapse in 2025. How is it that she was outed for being fake Spanish like 5 years ago now, close to, and Alec still hasn't addressed whether he knew that she was pretending to be Spanish or not? Like, was that the person she presented when they met? Like at what point did he know that she wasn't really Spanish?
There's no good explanation, is there? Because either he didn't know, in which case he's like, "Oh, I'm married to a psychopath," and she's saying, "Alec, did you want your tortilla? I know you don't like this cebollo," and then he realized that she grew up just down the road from him, and then, or she's gone, I'm Spanish, that's part of my vibe, and I'm not really, from there, but that's my image, that's my identity, that's why I go by. I mean, her name isn't even Hilaria, of course.
No,
it's
of course.
Hillary
from Boston.
Hillary Thomas.
I feel like if he knew, he wouldn't have said on Dave Letterman, "My wife is from Spain." It sounds like he thought she was really Spanish when he was married to her.
Yeah,
but then surely he would have met her parents by then and gone.
You'd think so.
Gone, wow, you guys have really Bostonian accents and appearance for Spanish people.
It's true. Yeah, and she would have said, "Yeah, they learnt English from a Bostonian English teacher." And they're just like eating Irish stew and playing stickball.
It does.
You don't seem that Spanish. They're like talking about Whitey Bulger in Southie.
She doesn't. I mean, the other thing about her for the ruse, like it did work. Like for a time, you can imagine that just being Hillary Thomas is her maiden name. Is that right? Hillary, what's her maiden name? Yeah,
I think so.
That if she's just Hillary Thomas from Boston, even though she's hot, if you imagine that she just had that Boston accent and that's her story. She's just like, I'm Hillary Thomas from Boston. I'm hot.
Yeah.
Then you'd go, well, there's loads of Hillarys from Boston that are hot, like whatevs. But
exactly.
She thought, well, what's going to get cut through here? I'll pretend to be an exotic Spanish person living in the United States. That's, this kind of fish out of water. Like, this, like, I'm so kind of crazy in, like, living here in America. Everything's so different. I'm back to my homeland.
And she was literally doing, like, cover features for, Spanish magazines and stuff. I mean, it's crazy. So, again, going back to this surprisingly well-written news.com.au article, shout out to... Oh, no, it's originally published in the New York Post. There you go. Kirsten Fleming has said the mother of 7 isn't a zesty chica from Spain's Balearic Islands, but a pretty brunette from Tony Beacon Hill. However, as a striver, she knows that a Spanish origin is far more exotic and useful in a world that turned against privilege, real or imagined. And I think that's an interesting take, Kirsten.
That's great.
So she's kind of gone, if I'm just a kind of upper middle class Boston person, maybe Alec would have said to her, "Look, that's all well and good, but I mean, I've got upper middle class Bostonians throwing themselves at me. You need something else.
Put this red dress on and start cooking things in the kitchen and being really passionate about them,
dancing the flamenco."
And speaking of the world turning against privilege, John, another thing that you sent me this week that you said, look, 2025 is really kicking off with a lot of Splag burgers with the lot.
It's going gangbusters,
was the upcoming Netflix series, which is featuring Meghan Markle, the princess of our hearts.
Merkel or Markle?
Princess. And I've got German politics on the brain, John.
Yeah.
So it's
Meghan Angela Merkel.
Because our government's collapsed over here. I've just been calling everything. I've just been calling everyone I've been calling everyone Angela. My neighbor Chris came over the other day and I was like, Angela, what's going on? Was geht? Meghan Markle.
Yeah.
She's got a new Netflix series coming out. Again, this is like, I can't wait to discuss with you. Yeah. Again, is it a 4D chess hate watch? Tell me about the show that's coming out. What's she doing? It seems tonally not in line with what's going on in society right now. In the words of the great Seymour Skinner, am I so out of touch?
Yeah, exactly. It's the streaming services that are wrong. So am I right that the new Netflix series is called With Love, Meghan? Yes. And it's and what's been rousing again attention, most of it that I've seen fairly critical. There's things coming out saying let them eat sponge cake because famously
that's great.
She makes a sponge for Mindy Kaling, celebrity friend in the Netflix trailer for the new show.
Yeah, I want to get to Mindy as well, but go on.
So it's a really kind of cloying, cringy trailer that is just straight up and down Harry and Meghan, where she's doing things. And actually, this is another kind of long running podcast favorite topic. So way back, I think it was about episode 116, we talked about her, the fact that they had, her and Harry had basically hit some headwinds with regards to their Spotify contract, which was not as lucrative as the $100 million Netflix contract, but was, I think, about a $20 million Spotify contract. And it's actually kind of a weirdly similar trajectory in some ways to Hilaria, where they just kind of tried and failed in on various occasions to really find to kind of find a vehicle that succeeds. And they obviously, they had a famously an interview with Oprah. I think that earned them a lot of attention and a lot of admiration and sympathy in some quarters in America. Then I think they had a Netflix special called Harry and Meghan, which I think again was like quite successful on Netflix, but not necessarily successful in the way that everyone thought. Geez, these are great people. Potentially successful just because people were watching it and thinking these people are insufferable, but here I am watching it. And then eventually they started a podcast on Spotify, which didn't do very well, and it fell apart after a few episodes. It was basically, I think, Meghan, occasional appearances from Harry, and then various sort of celebrity guests with a kind of Hilaria Baldwin Witches Anonymous vibe. You know, it was all about like mindfulness and empowerment and, you know, a bunch of kind of worried, rich LA people talking about their imagined problems and how they'd perfected themselves. And it fell apart. And then Spotify was like, you know what, where you're not actually keeping to your productivity benchmark as per the $20 million contract. So you're out. And this kind of, this guy who was a sort of, who was like a, I guess like a marketing czar at Spotify came out and said, I mean, he was a kind of outsider who was brought in by Spotify. So maybe he was not beholden to communicate in a very polite way, you know. So Spotify and Meghan both released statements saying, it's been great, so much respect and love for you, all the best. And he just came out swinging in this interview saying like, these people are fucking grifters and they've got no ideas. And like I was on these Teams calls with Harry, just like begging him to come up with an idea and he couldn't do anything. And they're just fucking lazy and blah, blah, blah. So that was pretty troubling. And then people were saying, and this was kind of going back certainly into last year, saying, you know, look, their $100 million Netflix deal ends in 2025 and they haven't really done much with it. I think Harry had a special...
Sorry, John. I didn't realize that they had there was an option on them and nothing had been done.
So I think what they had done with this Netflix thing was various things that had been attempted and shelved, but there was a kind of Harry and Meghan special which Netflix had run, which had done pretty well. And it was described by the co-chief of Netflix, Ted Sandros, as one of our most watched documentaries of all time and particularly huge in the UK. And then I think Harry did this kind of Invictus thing where he talked about these games that he had set up for war veterans.
Yeah.
And then, but people were saying, this doesn't really feel like you've done anything that's worth $100 million. So is there going to be pressure on Netflix to not extend the contract or maybe bring it to a premature close? So it makes total sense that they've subsequently said, and they released a statement at the time, Netflix saying, you know, and I think Meghan's people saying, you know, we're not worried about it. We got several things on the hopper, including some unscripted content and so on. And obviously what they had in mind for the unscripted thing was with love, Meghan.
So they're getting their money's worth. It looks like she's already agreed. They've already agreed to pay her this amount of money, and she is still obliged to do something for them. And so they've given her a call and said, "Look, we've got nothing to lose. So what can we do that
you either cancel the contract and we end up in court for years, or you just do a bit of a monkey dance and and we'll pull the strings, you know." And so she said, "Yeah, okay, I'll do that." And so she's gone on. I don't think she's been interviewed as far as I've seen about it specifically. The last I heard, she was just kind of making reference to an unscripted project, and then this obviously this trailer has launched. But the interesting thing is Sandros. I've seen him quoted saying again that this documentary was huge, but then he goes on to say, they're controversial, but that's usually a good thing. You may love them or hate them, but you're watching. Now that's quite a kind of unguarded thing for the co-chief of Netflix to say, because he's basically saying, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying you should watch this because it's great. I'm saying you should watch it because like you might hate it or you might like it. And it doesn't, I don't really care which of those it is. And you know, I care about eyeballs, and so that's kind of indicative of the fact that maybe because you watch this trailer and it is so off key and so kind of almost provocative, like it's almost bait, because it's this kind of, she's saying things like, I just try to elevate simple dishes, and then she's like making cupcakes or, you know, putting some petals in some ice cubes, and then she's standing around with all of her kind of emaciated LA mates kind of drinking these, low joule mocktails that they've made for themselves in their mansion. And it's just like, fucking, this is so on the nose. This is the kind of thing that, on the back of the kinds of themes that we've been discussing, going back to the Met Gala last year, where people were like, this is fucked and we need to stop obsessing over celebrities. And this is kind of the world that's being depicted is such a kind of cloistered, sheltered world of like rich, vacuous celebrities that don't really seem to even do anything except kind of inhabit that world and, occasionally do projects like this.
Well, another person that comes from that world, John, and very much embodies that world, and also there's talk of the empire collapsing, is Kim Kardashian and the Kardashians, because she put out this music video for Christmas. Did you see this? Have you heard about this? Did you see this? Have you heard about this?
No.
She put out she put out a version of Santa Baby. And it's with this very arty music video that's her like crawling around a kind of debauched, weird David Lynch-esque Christmas party, and it upset a lot of people. And a lot of people were just like, we're tired of you, and we're ashamed of the fact that we allowed you to occupy so much of our brains for the last 10 or 15 years, and we're ashamed of what you've done to our daughters and to women's image of themselves and what they should be, and fuck this family. And there's been a lot of 2025 predictions on podcasts at the moment, because it's a great little topic that you can chuck into the first episode or the last episode of your podcast.
What's going to happen?
What's going to happen? And I think in line with 2020, in line with that, I don't know if I would say it's a prediction, but it's something we've spoken about on the podcast. It is going to be interesting to see where that traditional world of celebrity goes in 2025, because they're losing their grip on attention, because more and more people like these two very handsome men looking down the barrel right now, just regular old people, now have access to attention through the internet. So these traditional people like princes and princesses and actors and like the Kardashians, who just come from like obscene wealth, these people no longer have a monopoly on the attention of the masses. And so you've got somebody like Meghan, who's potentially very boring. Similarly, Hilaria's like pretended to be somebody to look interesting. And I think people are kind of waking up and going, well, you aren't really interesting people. You're just famous, or you're just a royal. And the Met Gala is starting to feel more and more off, and there's just more of an online discussion about class and income inequality.
Yeah, 100%.
And I just don't see how they can keep feeding us this without the whole thing just falling apart. I think there'll always be a certain amount of celebrity worship, but I wonder if I feel like it's going to have to really be it's going to have to be partnered with some type of talent or something. You just can't. And also, I just don't think people really have as much appetite for just tuning into like opulent, wealthy people and going, this is amazing. These people are so amazing and better than me.
Yeah. I guess it's that sort of intermediary machine between us and celebrities that seems to be broken, because it doesn't actually pick people who are worthy of our attention or admiration. It picks people who, for whatever reason, have the right connections to get in with that machine and then get pushed by it. And often what you see, and you've presented a number of examples of this on the show over the years, of people who are pushed as kind of, an everyman or an everywoman, or as having humble beginnings, and then you scratch the surface and you're like, hang on, your dad invented Motown or whatever. And you go,
wait a second, Red Foo.
Yeah, that's right. And then you go, he was like, he's like the, the on the board of directors of Universal or some shit. It's always this kind of, there's always a few flags in there. And then you think, well, now we don't actually have to put up with, ersatz ordinary people, because actually the internet means that if you want to go and watch a kind of charismatic, interesting, actually somewhat ordinary person, they might have been shot to fame, but at least they kind of started off their own bat, or they have an interesting background or whatever. You can go and find those people for yourself. So you don't need to rely on that machine anymore, and it's constant torrent of lies. You can just make those inquiries off your own. And that's what's happened to us, two ordinary guys who, just salt of the earth fellas who've been shot to stardom through our own merits.
We pay our couple of €100 to Acast every year to distribute.
Exactly.
We upload to YouTube for free.
Yeah.
I don't know how much the fucking Acast. How much is the Acast? There's a couple of €100 per year to Acast to distribute the podcast to the major podcast platforms.
Yeah.
$1,000 on
subscriptions.
$1,000 on a camera and a blue light.
Exactly.
Sony, shout out Sony's EVE10 Sigma 16mm, the two most mentioned products on the podcast.
It's true. Canva subscription. You're done. Kit for the newsletter.
Shout out to Kit.
Shout out to Kit. So there is a machine behind us, but it's not Donnie from marketing. It's
Colin.
Colin, our producer. He's done well. He's still on holiday.
All the money goes to Colin. So I'm waiting to see in 2025. Again, at the end of the year we had the Wicked press tour, which was very much that as well. It was just, again, celebrities being celebrities, and I'm just like, fuck these people.
And you were telling me, we might come back to this in a subsequent episode, but you were telling me that Wicked has been underperforming outside of America, which I found
I think
very
so.
satisfying.
I think so. I think I was reading. I want to double check that, but I had read that it had been a big success in the US, but that it was not seeing the same success in Europe. And then there was some discussion about the appetite for musicals in the United States, and the appetite, and also also theater kid culture in the United States versus Europe, where America very much celebrates these kinds of like look at me people, and they find one another. And the Wicked press tour was the most look at me thing you've ever seen in your whole life.
People experiencing the kind of intensity of emotion that I've felt maybe twice in my life, and they're getting it just talking to some stranger from Entertainment Tonight.
And also I just keep sending you videos of, because maybe we should just turn maybe the pivot for the show is just Hollywood fakery, John. Maybe we should maybe when people ask me at a dinner party about what's the podcast about, instead of saying it's a show about the ways technology is shifting culture, I'll just say it's about the collapse of celebrity culture and elites. It's about basically I'm heading off to the Bilderberg meeting. I'm going to be staking out the Bilderberg meeting, and then I'm off to Davos to harass CEOs and princes.
Yeah, that's right.
I'll just get an internship with Alex Jones.
Yeah, exactly. I want to just be the guy that cream pies in the non-pornographic sense, that smashes with a cream pie Tom Cruise on the red carpet and gets him to switch from, from regular nice guy to kind of ego bruised, angry celebrity, because he's yelling at his assistant, "How could you let this fucking happen? What do I pay you for?" I love that clip. By the way, if everyone out there wants a little treat, a little bit of a quick watch, a quick hate watch, you can watch Jaden Smith coming out of a club. I think it's in Paris.
Yes, pure celebrity.
And he's really the kind of distilled essence of that sort of spoilt celebrity fucknut, and he's coming out of this club, and he says, "Where the fuck's my bag?"
Surrounded by, she's like got all these security who are making a kind of human corridor for him to escape the club and to be protected. And he just goes, "Where's my fucking bag?" And then there's some Instagram model following after him.
Yeah.
And everybody was just pointing to that Key and Peele clip from some years ago where they basically portray him exactly as that person, and then he has become that person. But yeah, I was also talking about the collapse of celebrity. I was sending you video clips of Ariana Grande and how the way that she talks has changed. And she's in her Wicked era of speaking where she talks like a sort of little innocent baby all the time. Like when she's talking, she's sort of like, "Oh my God, I'm kind of a deer in the headlights and I'm a little 30-year-old baby." And then there's clips of her where she kind of drops out. Like I didn't realize, I haven't spent a lot of time around Ariana Grande's career until more recently. But she didn't sound anything like that. Not only did her face look quite different, but she didn't sound anything like that 10 years ago. And in fact, there's recent clips. There's one recent clip of her doing the rounds where it's a more recent clip of her where she's in her baby kind of era, and she drops it for a second in an interview, and the pitch of her voice goes right down, and she sounds, to my ear, she sounds like very sexy and cool. She's just like, and then I can't believe and then she catches herself and she goes, and you see her kind of go, "And that's why I'm a sexy little baby." You just go, why can't any of these people be real? Why could it be all fake?
It's so crazy. Well, I'm looking forward to a grande pumpkin spice, a Starbucks Ariana cross promotion. Why hasn't that happened?
So that's our prediction is not the complete collapse, but maybe a kind of maybe the deep rot in the foundation. If I could use an Australian housing analogy, maybe the salt damp. Maybe you've got
exactly. It's sneaking up from the foundations. You're going, what's that smell? You've got the space heaters on. You're trying to get it out of there.
I have PTSD from the amount that I had to hear about salt damp as a child because my parents just used to fight about the salt damp in the house and fixing the salt damp in the front on the front wall of the house. It was just constantly. It was just like I would be in bed like shivering, and Mum would go, "You okay?" And I'd go, "Is the salt damp gonna get me in the night, Mum?" Because that's all they talked about in the house in Prospect. Was salt damp. So maybe it's the continuing rot of celebrity culture. Boy, oh boy, I do have to check when the Met Gala. Let's ask ChatGPT, and we'll make sure that our listeners remind us when is the Met Gala, and I'll check the theme as well. Remember when is the Met Gala 2025, and what is the theme? It'd be great. The theme is derelict. They just all dress up like homeless people.
Just double down. Yeah. The theme is celebrating income inequality.
The theme is Skid Row. It's this kind of Skid Row. Everybody's we're gonna have Lizzo turned up in an outfit that kind of resembles a tent and with like crack pipes all nailed to the side of it.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, I've been listening to a podcast. Shout out to, I don't think there's much competition between our audiences, but shout out to The Rest is History, my favorite history podcast. They've been doing a series about the French Revolution, and I think we're entering the kind of second year where the simmering foment is starting to spill over, and we're going to start to see probably guillotines in Hollywood, Hollywood Hills aflame.
My gillies. I love my gillies.
My wife, my gillies, and my beautiful bee garden. Shout out Tim Heidecker.
Here we go. The theme for the event. Hang on. I'll get the date here. Here we go. The 2025 Met Gala is scheduled for Monday, May 5th. Keep that. Put that in your diaries. Don't praises. I'm going to put that in my calendar. Monday, May 5th at the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. The theme for the event. Party. Yeah, totally. That could be a live event.
DPTM live. Let's do it.
Or John, I could go.
Yeah.
I could go and hang out the front.
Get a press pass.
I could do a kind of gonzo sneak in.
Yeah, fucking hell. That's giving me excitement butterflies. We should do it.
The theme for the event is superfine, tailoring black style. Inspired by Monica L. Miller's book, Slaves to... what the fuck is... Oh, my God. Listen, so I'm going to read this to you, John. The theme for the event is superfine, tailoring black style. Inspired by Monica L. Miller's book, Slaves to Fashion, black dandyism, and the styling of black diasporic identity. That sounds like a misstep.
Yeah, it definitely does. It sounds like they've done what they often will do, what Hollywood will often do in these scenarios, where they overcorrect in a way that is itself indicative of them being out of touch.
That is a massive overcorrection, and also that's going to make it kind of difficult for the non-black guests to not. That's going to be a fine line to walk if you're Leonardo DiCaprio and they say, okay, Leo, you need to go as a black dandy. He's going to go.
He's going. Oh man, I cannot wait. Someone's going to cross that line in the worst way. Fuck it right up.
That can't. That's just, the event will be co-chaired by Coleman Domingo, don't know who that is, Lewis Hamilton, A$AP Rocky, Pharrell Williams, and Anna Wintour with LeBron James.
Oh, LeBron.
Serving as an honorary chair. This is a terrible idea. This is a tinderbox of culture war.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty much like if you could say... If you said to Anna, can you come up with a thing where you're trying to appear to be connected to the struggle of African American communities, and so can you just get like a whole bunch of black celebrities involved? Oh, and Anna Wintour, and then the theme's going to be black dandyism. This will be viewed well by the public.
I mean, what? Yeah, what are the? Anyway, we'll see. It'll be exciting.
We should dress in black dandyism for this episode.
You can. Yeah, it's a great vehicle for all the people who get accused of quote unquote blackfishing, like Australia's own Iggy Azalea.
Yeah.
Like Ariana Grande herself, who's been accused of appropriating black culture because actually I thought she was Latina, but she is Italian. So she's that's her background. And of course Rita Ora, who is Albanian and
yes, that's right.
Has been presenting herself as possibly black for some time, according to her critics.
I thought I'd just throw out a last stat for the show, keeping in line with the way that technology is shifting culture and so much more. According to reviews.org, survey came out last week or the week before, getting a lot of attention online. Americans spend 2.5 months a year on their cell phone. So the math goes, and this sadly does ring true to me a lot at the moment, because I do have a little screen time. I actually have a screen time widget on my phone. So I'm actually, if I scroll over, it tells me straight away. Like it says, thank God I've only been on so far. I mean, it's the morning here, but I've been on 3 minutes. But it's not uncommon for it to say at the end of the day 4 or 5 hours. And so this is the math.
Yeah.
5 hours. So it's like it's 5 hours and 1 minute a day on average Americans are spending on their cell phone, right? And that, if you do the math, that works out to 2.5 months a year, which that is a crazy statistic, and that's waking hours. 2.5 months of waking hours. Americans, and I would sort of assume as well.
Wild. What?
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have a sense of, do you ever check your screen time stats?
Yeah, I do. And then I go,
but I won't say.
Yeah, I can't say. I think I'll clock up 2.5 months by March. But
John's like, yeah, mine's definitely around 5 hours a day.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I do. It's funny. I was just thinking as he said that this time last year, I had installed all of these things on my phone.
Blockers and choppers.
Blockers and choppers. I had it on black and white setting. I had various timers.
The classic.
And now I just go on Instagram and it goes, you've reached your 15-minute limit. And I go, shut up. And I just remove that warning and keep going.
Uninstall.
And so I'm back up probably to where I was, although it did work for a while. But yeah, I mean, that makes sense. If you think about if I think about, okay, I'm sleeping for, let's say I'm sleeping for 8 hours. So I've got 14 hours in the day. Then is that right? And then I've got, half of that some days will be spent on the phone, sometimes like a quarter of it, whatever. So it's easily going to amount to, a quarter of my waking life, which is very disconcerting, because not only that, but you add that up over a lifetime and you think, man, that's going to skyrocket to one of the top 10 regrets of the dying pretty soon.
Oh boy, is it? Yeah.
So I was going to go to Mount Kilimanjaro, but I was too busy. I was too busy just commenting on Anna Wintour threads.
I wanted to build that orphanage, but then I thought, I'll just play Fruit Ninja in bed all night instead.
Exactly. Anna Wintour, who, by the way, just a quick shout out to Anna, because she did receive from outgoing President Joseph Robinette Biden
a pardon.
Yeah, that's right. A prospective pardon for all the terrible things she's going to do. But no, she received the Presidential Medal of Freedom, which is the highest civilian honor that you can give in America. And of course, they thought, what's really going to help what's really going to teach people that the Democratic establishment has not become distracted by elite coastal interests is if we basically give a knighthood to Anna Wintour.
So good. So yeah, everybody, if you're spending 5 hours a day on your phone, that's going to be 2.5 months. So everybody, just keep a little eye on your screen time. I think I don't know that there's much that can be done. Like I keep thinking, we're going to get a handle on this. There'll be a tipping point. Everybody will realize this ain't no good. But
yeah,
I mean, I'm really conscious of this, and I feel like I'm spending more time on my phone. The more conscious that I become, the better everything gets. Like we said in an episode some time ago, like when you're able to just generate images out of thin air because of AI now, like everything's just getting more better and fun, and we're just needing to use things more and more. And so I don't know, but we'll see.
Well,
we'll see.
Another thing,
I'll keep an eye on my screen time.
Yeah, we should all do that. See how you go, guys. Tell us what how you're going in the battle against the design devils that make our phones into portable poker machines that we can't, portable fruit machines, if that's your language, that we can't stop.
Hit us up
using. And do you support Australia's forthcoming ban on social media for the under 16s, which I think is probably going to be unenforceable, but it's an interesting step.
Actually, can we just make that next week's episode, John? Because I would love to. I'm really interested in that, and I haven't dove. Is that right? It's not dived, is it? I haven't dove into that.
You haven't. Yeah.
I haven't dove into that, and I know that that's a really interesting thing that's going on, and I think that would really be a Spargburger with a lot because it's Australia, it's technology, and you're our lawman. And so
there you go.
I feel like,
Yeah,
and
let's do
also
that.
maybe this could be a good idea. This could be kind of tune in next week, guys, because we'll give you a little taster. So next week, so long as nothing super crazy happens, so long as, I don't know, maybe like it turns out that those drones over New Jersey is the Chinese government having cracked anti-gravity technology, and maybe we're having an Independence Day moment where everybody walks out of their home and there are just craft in the sky over all major capital cities in the world, and then we apologize,
saying, "So Al, take you to section 3 of the proposed legislation."
There's just a drone hovering out the window. You can just see in the reflection, there's just like a drone, Chinese drone staring at me. And boy, I mean, would China have drones on you and me after our, we'd be one of the major surveillance targets.
It's true. Sorry about what I said about Taiwan. It was a joke.
But it's gonna, John, I'm wishing everyone a great 2025.
2025. We are very excited to be back with you. And yes, please do join us next week for a deep dive on Australia's proposed social media ban for the under 16s. Is it enforceable? Is it a good idea? Why are they doing it? Are other countries going to follow suit? And what does it mean for the podcast listenership? Most of whom I think are around about that 14 or 15 mark.
It's funny actually, I've looked at the demographics and it really is us who's listening for the most part.
Yeah,
it's all like 35 to 45. We do not get a lot of millennials tuning in. There is a handful of them out there, particularly my cousins. I want to give them a shout out. But I think otherwise,
I guess we're kind of late stage millennials. I think we scrape in, but there's not a lot of young millennials or below.
Yeah,
or
the Gen Z
generation.
is the Gen Z is. Did I say millennial?
Certainly. Yeah, Gen Z is what you meant.
We're not getting a lot of Gen Z.
Certainly not Generation Alpha. We haven't cracked the skibbity toilet market, unfortunately.
Yeah, but we can. Come on, Generation Alpha. We're going to pivot to the skibbity. The skibbity. I did this years ago, like the Generation Alpha. Because we were talking about Generation Alpha on one of the early episodes. And I think, here we go, I'll do this. I'll go, Generation Alpha. There we go.
I saw my first reference to Generation Beta during the week. And I thought, man, that's not a generation I want to be part of. But
no,
anyway.
the cuck generation.
The cuck generation, exactly.
Okay.
Well, thank you very much,
I think it's been the
everybody.
longest episode of all time, but that's fine.
Yeah,
It's the first one. Because we went 2 weeks without one, so you get a little
we've got
double.
We've got our running legs on.
Exactly. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in today and Praise the Machine, and we can't wait to see you next week.
The podcast.